All right, in this video, we're going to wrap up our series of the workbook exercise walkthrough videos here for Chapter 5. And in this video, we'll knock out two problems in one video. They're very similar problems, and we can just kind of get those going together here, I think. Okay, so we're going to be looking at depreciation expense in both of these problems, and just kind of how that depreciation works, how it gets shown as net book value, etc. So this problem tells us that on January 1st, we purchased a new machine for $60,000. So we can put $60,000 in here, the cost of the machine. The machine is expected to last 6 years, have no residual value, so we don't need to worry about residual value for our depreciation calculation. We have a December 31 year end, and we need to prepare the table showing the yearly depreciation, accumulated depreciation, and net book value. So depreciation expenses is real easy in this instance because it's just the cost of the machinery divided by the useful life in years, and we have 6 years to account for. And note that we bought the machine in our example on January 1st, so each year is going to have exactly one full year of depreciation expense assigned to it. If we bought the machinery partway through the year, which I believe we'll see in the next problem, AP14B, then we would have less than a year in the first year of depreciation expense, right? Because we would maybe bought it halfway through the year, so we would only have 6 months of depreciation instead of 12 to record here. But we're able to just record a whole year's worth for each year. And then accumulated depreciation in this first year is just equal to depreciation expense, because this is just going to be the accumulated balance of all the depreciation to date. And so far to date, we just have that one amount, okay? And the net book value we calculate by taking the cost minus the accumulated depreciation at that point. And so you can see C4 minus E4 gives us a net book value of $50,000 at the end of the first year. Okay, and then the second year and all subsequent years after that, so I'm just going to drag this down to show that it's $60,000. The cost of the machine never changes. We can just do this same formula and drag it down as well, because the total depreciation expense is just the same. We're using that straight line method, so it's just $10,000 every year. We can, so totaling, honestly, I'm going to delete that out because it's not really like a summation of the above for that. It's just that the cost of the machine never changes. Now we can summarize the depreciation expense, and you can see that after 6 years, the cost of, or the amount of depreciation that we've recorded is equal to $60,000, which is the cost of the machine. And then how we account for that with the accumulated depreciation is we just add in, the previous amount plus the current year equals what we have at the end of the second year. And then similarly, the amount above plus what's in the current year gives us $30,000, and we can just drag that formula down. So the formula is taking the prior year's ending balance plus the current year's expense to give us the ending balance at the current year. And when we get to the end of those years, then we should have an accumulated amount of depreciation expense that's equal to the cost of the machine. And that's equal to the cost of the machine because we didn't have any residual value. We'll see a different take on that here in AP14B. Okay, and then this formula, right, the net book value is always just the cost of the machine minus the accumulated depreciation. And so we can again just drag our formula down that we created, and you can see how the net book value drops down by $10,000 every year, which reflects the fact that we're recording an additional $10,000 of depreciation expense every year. And this net book value is what we see on the balance sheet as our asset. And so over time, over those 6 years, eventually we get to a point where the machinery has no value anymore on our balance sheet, basically. Its useful life is gone, and it has no further asset value on our balance sheet. Okay, now let's skip over to AP14B, and there's a few different things to take into account that are a little different here. So the first thing is on November 1st, we refurnished the entire office for $25,000. So note that it's not January 1st, it's November 1st. So we have furniture for $25,000. It's expected to last 4 years, and this furniture has an estimated residual value of $1,000. Okay, and we have a December year end, and we're going to prepare the table showing the yearly depreciation. The same stuff we showed in the other tab there. But let's do some calculations first that are going to help us solve this problem. And because this one's a little more involved than the other one, having these calculations, I think, are helpful. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, because we have a residual value, is we want to subtract that residual value from the cost. So we get $24,000 of net cost. And then we're going to want to calculate the useful life, not just in years like we did in AP 13B, but we want to do months, because we're going to have to record just some individual months of depreciation here in the first year especially. So if it's 4 years of useful life, as it says here, expected to last 4 years, we can translate that to months by multiplying it by 12, because there's 12 months per year. And so in 4 years, that's the same thing as 48 months. And then we can say, take our net cost divided by the amount of months, and that tells us that depreciation expense per month is going to be $500. And another way, if we want to convert that to annual, we just multiply that by 12, or we could just divide 24 by 4, for example, but we'll just do it by multiplying the monthly times 12. And so depreciation expense per year will be $6,000, per month will be $500, and now we have all the information that we need to fill out our table here. Okay, so same thing. The original cost of the machine is $25,000. So be careful not to grab the net cost. We do want the original, the actual amount paid. I included a column here to list out how many months are applicable to each year between the time of purchase and December 31st, which is the year end. And so since we bought this on November 1st, we're just going to have November and December in 2018 of it actually in service. Before November, we didn't have the thing. So just November and December, just 2 months. There's going to be a full 12 months in each of these. And we can actually summarize totaling these up, kind of helps there. So you can see 3 years, 3 full years. The first year only had 2 months because we got it in November. And then the last year is only going to have 10 months because we accounted for the first 2 months of the full 48 within 2018. So we only have 10 months, which brings us up to October. As you can kind of see, we started in November, so our ending 48 months ends at the end of October of 2022. Okay. And you can kind of check yourself by noting that the 48 total months agrees to the total 48 months there. And then one thing we can do is we can just take the number of months times the monthly depreciation to give us what that amount would be. And we know, and we could just even link here, if it's 12 months, we know it's going to be 6,000. But anywhere that it's less than 12 months, we need to multiply the monthly times the total amount of months. Okay, so in those 4 years, now we've recorded $24,000 of depreciation expense, which you can see here is equal to the net cost. So that tells us we're doing something right. Remember, our accumulated here is just taking, for the first year, it's just whatever we recorded, and then for each subsequent year, it's taking the previous year's totals plus the current amount to add that together. I can just drag this down as a formula. And when we get to the end of the 4 years, we've got an accumulated amount of depreciation of $24,000. And then again, remember, our net book value is the historical cost. Remember, not the net cost. We just get the net cost in order to calculate depreciation. But the net book value is the original full cost minus the accumulated depreciation to date. And then we just have that same thing basically for the rest of the machine's existence, its life with our company as we're using it, or sorry, the furniture in this instance. And here's something to note. So in that final year, after we've recorded all of the depreciation expense that we expect, and it's been 4 years, the ending net book value is $1,000. And that's what we expect to see. That's the whole concept of having this salvage value or residual value, is that what we're saying with that is after we fully depreciate this thing, we expect to be able to sell it basically for $1,000. We think that we're not going to use this machinery or furniture, after 4 years, but we think it's still going to be worth $1,000. So that's why we adjust our depreciation calculations by subtracting out the salvage value or residual value, means the same thing, in order to arrive at that residual value once we've fully depreciated this asset. So the fact that this equals 1,000 is what we're shooting for when we include a residual value. And that kind of tells us that we did the calculations right, essentially. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, everybody. This video is the last in the series of workbook exercise videos for Chapter 5. So hopefully you found this helpful. Be sure to reach out if you have any additional questions, and I will talk to you all soon. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good one.